There are 2 participants in this conference. Please announce yourself.
This is the 523 Happy Hour with your host, Kelly Lincoln.
Yeah, that's me.
Radio.com.
Here on netrootsradio.com. I always talk over myself. It's what I do best. And, good afternoon. Good evening. And welcome. All that lowering and raising of my theme was due to what's called ducking. And so that's what that is. That's why I could talk over the music. And you lucky people could hear me. And, wow, happy Thanksgiving 3-day weekend to you all. Hoping that all of you are going to have a safe, sane, and otherwise highly enjoyable Thanksgiving weekend with your friends, your family, and all that good stuff. Me, I'm working today. So, once again, this is coming to you live on tape or whatever. And what a week we've been having. What a time to be alive, you know? I don't know about y'all, but I've been watching the impeachment inquiry hearings, and I will admit that I had to turn it to mute when the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee were blithering because they weren't saying anything. They weren't asking any questions. They were grandstanding and trying to make everything so difficult for people to listen to that people just said, fuck this, and tuned out. That was what they wanted, was for people to tune out. So that's how they were trying to drive the narrative and the repetition of the Russian talking points. And all I got to say to that, and it's sort of different when you're trying to do this stuff. And all you know is that no matter how hard you listen, you never hear the Republicans actually saying anything to defend the president or to call him out. So it just seems that,
The Russians are coming! The Russians are coming! The Russians are coming!
Yes, the Russians are coming, or they're already here. They've just managed to co-opt an entire political party for the express concept of destroying our system. And you'd think they'd have the balls to stand up, or maybe they're all compromised, because we have to remember that that it just wasn't the DNC servers that were hacked. The Republican National Committee servers were also hacked, but it's been kept quiet. So there you have it. And we have a dumbass in the audience. We have somebody who aspires to be John Gotti. He thinks he's a Teflon Don. He thinks he's Teflon Don Trump. But he's really just a squeeze crab. He's a vice admiral of the lower yellow seas. He's a coward. Hell, he ain't even a bully. He thinks he is, but he gonna find out that really quickly that nobody's got his back, because he never has theirs. Just waiting to find out how long it's going to take for him to distance himself from his life partner, Rudy Giuliani, because it's getting real close to that. And if you've been listening to the news, even Devin Nunes now has a huge problem, really big one, Well, we always knew that he was in the pocket, like Mitch McConnell, of the Russians. But now there is like hard evidence tying him to it, because Lev Parnas, who is one of the indicted associates of Rudy Giuliani, says he got receipts, got the proof, got the paperwork, got audio, video, we hope, of Nunes with one of the with the Russian oligarch. I don't know if it's, I can't remember if it's Klimnik or somebody, or Dereskaya. It's one of those, or somebody else. But oh man, so busted that Lil Donnie Thwimp's been awfully quiet of late, so we're just going there, you know. And got some noise here. I'm hearing things. I'm hearing things coming out from my Bluetooth speaker. So who knows what's going on? I'm going crazy. No, I've already been crazy. And I'm going to start out by telling you how my week went. My week went really good. Getting to play with the new Bose frames. Those are so freaking cool. That you need to go and listen to them. I think I mentioned this. Did I do a show last week? No, I was talking. This was in the Late Night Saturday show with Ricky. And I was telling him that they're really cool. They're not noise canceling, but you can hear stuff around you because they're, like I said, they're sunglasses. And the earpieces are larger. The speakers are in there, and you can make phone calls with them, and you can change out the swap out the lenses. And hang on, with and I've got tea. I am so unprepared. I thought I had some beverage here with me, but I don't. So that's the way that works. But they're really cool, and my therapy went well. Remembering working through all sorts of shit that I thought I had worked through, and it's an interesting process. It's an interesting process when you realize that if you get loud and angry, that they come and take you away because you're not allowed to get loud and angry, and you know that's
not good.
No,
not good.
No, it's not. That's the one drawback to Spreaker Studio that I've got. You only have 9 sound effect slots. And Spreaker, if you're listening, you need to give us more sound effect slots, or allow us to plug in our sound effects carts. I got a shit ton of them that I want to use, and I can't unless I bring them into a playlist, and then that gets too messy. And yeah, just a week. I was in my art class, and a couple of the guys got into it. Oh, no politics, because when this one individual is creating, he's really good. I mean, it's more like an art group of various degrees of talent. Everybody's like really good, but this guy has some real illustration talents, and he's been working on a series of cards. And so for him, it has to be a library. It has to be absolutely quiet. And a couple of other people were discussing politics, and he got upset. Don't know what set him off on it, but he started to demand that they just stop talking politics. I don't know if it got loud, but it turned into name-calling on both sides. It was just one of those things you don't want to deal with. It got loud, and neither one would take the hint to walk away. I mean, it was a couple of guys trying to piss on each other, and as a result, everybody got pissed on in the class, in the group. And I'm just taking a mental health break from that. Like I've said before, I live in supportive housing, senior housing, due to a traumatic brain injury and formerly being homeless. So I'm in a situation, I'm in a lovely residence, it's really nice, where there are people with other psychological issues or need of assisted living. And so people tend to walk around being really tightly wound, I think is the best description for all of us living here. So there's that. And you notice I'm really trying not to go back to talk about the inquiry, but I have to. The inquiry was like fascinating, listening to people talk and listening to the witnesses that the Republicans on the judiciary wanted to bring in and how it backfired on them, and listening to Vindman and Hill and other Americans by choice speak. It was emotionally inspiring and listening, and reminding all of us how much we native-born Americans by birth take our status as citizens for granted, whereas the status of citizen for an immigrant, first generation, even a second generation immigrant, new naturalized citizen or first generation American by birth, the big difference is. Now, my father was an immigrant, so my brother and I are first generation Americans by birth. My mother's father was an immigrant, so she was a first generation American by birth. And so it goes on, and it gets kind of weird. Genealogically, my brother and I are second generations by birth on our mother's side, first generation on our dad's, and it's kind of like, how your family tree works, where, so we're Americans once from, just... So it can get very convoluted when you start going down the American by birth route genealogy. But it's a fascinating thing. So little Donnie Squeeze Crab got his little ass caught on the barbed wire with his smear tweet of Yovanovitch while she was testifying. And so, I'm no Rachel Maddow, and I'm no, explainer or anything like that, but I do know that while listening to the questioning and the statements and how seriously all the women kept their cool, and while you're seeing characters like Kavanaugh and the jackass who just got himself a lifetime appointment to the federal bench, who never tried a case or anything, cry and say, they're being mean to me. They're being so mean to me. They're being mean to me. And so let's go back to the framing of some of the stuff that they were going on, and how it's interesting. At this point, I would discuss about framing, or blither on about framing. I would talk about how the media keeps walking into the president's frame, which puts them on the defensive. And now we see how the Republicans walked right into the political framing of Putin and the FSB, of Russia in general, and picked up on this, the bullshit on Ukraine being responsible for the election interference and the DNC hacking. Well, if that was the case, then don't you think that the Republicans would have been calling out Donald Trump for his obsequiousness towards Putin? And they would be calling him out on how he accepts what the FSB, Russian intelligence, deferring to Russia for intelligence matters rather than our own intelligence community? No. So that immediately puts the lie. Because, So because the Republicans have walked into the president's frame, they are now on the defensive because there's nowhere for them to go. They are, And while you were watching you were listening to the hearing, you could see how both sides were were portraying themselves as the heroes, villains, and how, well, especially with the GOP trying to portray themselves as the victims, heroes, and the Democrats on the judiciary as the villains of the piece, and how it was not working. And because they stepped into that frame of now, in the game of framing, reframing, there's three roles that are played: the victim, the hero, the villain. And the Republicans have not only portrayed themselves as the heroes, but they've also portrayed themselves as the victims, and the Democrats as the villains. And in order to frame themselves as the hero/victim, they have had to reframe. They must deny that they're the bad guys. And in denying that they are the bad guys, they have had to fully embrace the villainous point of view, which is the factoid that they have embraced Russian propaganda, that they have willingly accepted that bullshit line, which more or less leads a lot of people to ask, what does Putin have on them? We all know that up until the day Lindsay played golf with Trump, he was a vocal opponent of Donald Trump's. And then immediately after the game, he became a toady. What did Donald Trump say to him? Or what did Donald Trump play for him? Or what did Donald Trump show him? And that's the question. And what date does the little Donnie have on Leningrad Lindsay? $200 pieces of legislation has been passed by the House, and yet the Senate won't do jack shit on it because Mitch McConnell says so. He ain't going to let nothing happen. So I think what we need to do when the Senate and everybody comes up for re-election is to vote those bastards out. Especially Moscow, murderous Moscow Mitch, who sold his state to the highest bidding oligarch. Kentucky is now owned by Russia. McConnell ain't going to do jack shit out of fear of losing an aluminum plant and jobs. You don't believe me? Do a search on Kentucky aluminum plant. And in listening to the Republicans rant on about in the hearings. You can listen how poorly they try to turn things that were said about Giuliani and Mulvaney's and machinations as they're trying to turn all those words back on the Democrats, trying to like make it sound like the Democrats did it. Our boys didn't. Our boys are too pure to do that. But if you listen to more to how they were said, how it was said, rather than what was said, you can hear the fear. If you don't listen to what Jim Jordan was trying to auction off, but listening to how fast he was speaking. He was trying to speak so fast that that there was no way to respond. There were no questions asked. You know, the look on Nunes's face when Dr. Hill got finished testifying was just like, holy shit, that's why they had to call a adjournment. They had to regroup, they had a plan. I mean, everything that they had planned on saying they couldn't attack her. They had to come up with a different game plan, and they still couldn't come up with a decent game plan. You know, to the point that, as it stands now, if, Donald Trump has been saying how unfair this whole thing is and how he wasn't allowed to bring witnesses and testify in front of them and all that stuff. Well, the way it works is the Intelligence Committee interviews witnesses, takes their testimony, distills it into a report, presents that report to the House Judiciary Committee, which then looks at articles of impeachment and indicts. Once the president is indicted and the articles are presented to the Senate, then it goes to trial, where the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court presides. Since it's Justice Roberts, it's an impartial. It's going to be interesting to see that. And at that point, little Donnie's squeeze crab, Vice Admiral of the Lower Yellow Seas, will be allowed to question his accusers. So, and whether or not the Senate convicts is yet to be seen. It all depends on whether or not they care more about the nation and their oath of office, or are terrified of little Donnie's base. And in which case, the elections are coming up, and all of them need to be thrown out if he's not convicted.
Hi, it's Tom. Just asking in the spirit of the season, which you probably have been racking your brain to give to a most worthy cause, could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots Radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
The coolest way to start your weekend.
Resuming episode. Resuming episode.
Welcome back. That was just a little quickie, because I had to look at my notes. Let's see. What do we have here? About negative emotions and anger, indignation. La 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 la. There's like 3 P's. Policy, values, personal commitment. How committed are you? Are you doing more than just sitting behind your keyboard and typing away and excoriating folks on the Twitters? Are you contacting your representatives? Your senators, Democratic or Republican? Contact your elected representatives, because they're supposed to be representing you, not Russia, not the NRA, not, got to let them know how you feel. Got to let them know how you feel. Another thing about Friday, November 22nd, and maybe I'm speaking to a lot of people that were alive in 1963, but 56 years ago to the day, on Friday, November 22nd, 2019, 56 years ago to that day, that very day, I was in 3rd grade. And we were just getting ready to go to lunch when our school's principal came on the public address system and informed us that President Kennedy had been shot. And being a 3rd grader, as a friend of mine and I walked out the classroom door and we were going towards to get our lunch, I said, "This is a joke." I did not believe it. I was in 3rd grade. And in fact, I did not believe it, even though there was news coverage of it. That was all that was on TV that Friday. I got up the next day, Saturday morning, turned on the TV to watch cartoons, and it was wall-to-wall coverage of Kennedy's funeral. It was lying in state. And I think for a lot of us, boomers, that was the shattering of the national psyche. And we weren't perfect at that point, but we had this youthful enthusiasm, and we just basically threw up our hands and said, "Fuck this." And I think that "fuck this" viewpoint has stuck with a lot of people to our very dying day. And I'm bringing this up because in a lot of ways we boomers are still saying "fuck this." I believe that if we hadn't said "fuck this," we wouldn't be so complacent about what's going on in our nation today. And living for as long as I have, and in my experiences, there's been a lot of perceived "fuck this" around me, and it's not quite the language of apathy, but pretty damn close to it. The language of "fuck this" is why we've seen, in my opinion, the rise of racism and bigotry and homophobia. Bigotry in all of its forms. Whether it's Jew hate, Muslim hate. I'm not going to pretty up these words. Whether it's religious hate or hate across the board. I mean, I hear all this, see on the internet all the time, a lot of, oh, we didn't, oh, you know, memes of the U.S. Army holding captured Nazi flags, and it's like, anti-fascists, being anti-fascist is more than just taking to the streets. If you're an anti-fascist, then get out to the fucking polls, people, and vote the fascists out of office. People are wondering, how come we're not in the streets in the ways that they are in France and others in Europe? Well, we've got a lot of territory, a lot of land. And when you have a small, and our capital city is rather small, to be blunt about it. District of Columbia is small compared to some of the older capitals like Paris and all of that. So it's kind of hard to pour 1 million people into D.C. And people are afraid to take their jobs. They'll lose their jobs. They'll lose this, that, the other, We have become indebted. We are bond servants to our jobs. Our lifestyles has got us in indentured servitude. And it's a servitude we'll never pay, and it's a bond we'll never pay off. It's what the student loan debt crisis is. It's indentured servitude. You're a bond servant. You got to pay that bond off, that student loan off, before you can be free. Because that thing may not even go away when you die. Think about that. A student loan is the only debt that does not go away when you die. The government can seize your estate when you die to pay off your student loan. Think about that. So, what else are we going in here? As I wander around, this is the ADHD approved 5:23 happy hour. So, going back to listening to these ginks. And they're grandstanding, or their attempt to grandstand. I mean, they weren't even grandstanding. I mean, they weren't even, bleacher standing. They were in the aisle, jumping up and down, saying, "I need a seat. Is that seat taken? Is that seat taken?" Jumping up and down, screaming,
Sound the general alarm! Sound the general alarm! Sound the general alarm! Off to the deck!
And there's no officer of the deck to sound the general alarm. I mean, they're yelling and screaming, and they need to grab your attention. And we are learning to be patient, even though we are impatient. Just learning. And I'm going to go for our Kook of the Week. Who is our Kook of the Week?
This is the Kook of the Week.
I'm going to have to say the entire, Devin Nunes, I believe it is our Kook of the Week, because he kept invoking something about Democrats or Adam Schiff or the Democrats on the Judiciary House Intelligence Committee having, oh God, can't even, the idea is just disgusting, nudes of Donald Trump. Yeah, so that's our Kook of the Week. He is the recipient of the Grand Order of the Cracked Chamber Pot, and his chamber pot will be posted up on Internet Kook of the Week on Facebook. So just stay tuned for it. I'll post that link later. Now, I know I keep saying that I'm going to be posting show links and show notes on my Masterless People page, on the show's page, Facebook page. And I really want to apologize for not doing that, but I am just lazy. Just lazy. So I've got some lovely stuff here that Rocky Mountain Mike has graciously given me permission to use. So I'm going to play you, his Trumpfully Dumb.
Is there anybody in there who's not a total moron? Are Republicans all dumb? Come on now. I saw you beat 'em. We all feel the pain of a bigoted campaign. Relax, you'll spread misinformation first. You're divorced from facts, and it doesn't really hurt. There are no thoughts, they are receiving. Some dimwit twits there on your horizon. You are getting men who live in caves. Their lips say they'd still like to own slaves. When I was a child, I had Trump fever. My head was empty like a blue balloon. Now I got that feeling once again. I can't explain, you would not understand. I'm brainwashed for this man. I have become Trumpfully dumb. Have become Trumpfully dumb. Okay. He's just a little dim prick. He'll deal no more. But his followers are sick. Now can you stand it? I do think I should protest. Good. That'll get you punched out at his show. He's really got to go. There are no thoughts, they are receiving. Some dimwit twits there on your horizon. He's been spread
Thank you, Rocky Mountain Mike. That was Trumpfully Dumb. And you're listening to netrootsradio.com. We are Resistance Radio. And going on a bit more, I mean, I've been trying to do some deconstruction of what was said, and while listening to Rocky Mountain Mike's epic, I realized that one of the reasons that Lieutenant Colonel Vindeman and Dr. Hill and some of the other witnesses were so profound and damning is because they went to the metaframe in language. What they did is that they simply said, "You're wrong." Especially Dr. Hill. She very simply told the Republicans to stop. Just stop. You're playing into the hands of Russia. And I think even for the most extreme, she's had an impact. I mean, she actually had such an impact that Thwimp had to come out and say, "Oh, she refused to hang my portrait in the embassy." Well, that's a fucking lie. You know, it's what he does. It's what he does best, but it's becoming tiresome. I mean, when Thwimp went to Walter Reed, I mean, everybody, you know, and they don't know whether to believe if there was anything wrong or not, simply because the man has the White House has put out so many different lies that, you know, they don't know if he's, you know, they can't tell if he went to Walter Reed for a panic attack, or it was just simply, you know, to set something up or to distract. It's a panic attack because listening to the Daily Show, when they were discussing it, they were the ones that brought up the panic attack, because I've had them, and, well, it wasn't as severe as his, feeling with chest pains. A severe panic attack can actually feel like you're having a heart attack. If, you know, they're talking about, you know, because there were some leaks about, you know, chest discomfort. That's a chest discomfort. And Malcolm Nance also pointed out the motorcade would be the tell as to how serious his need to go to Walter Reed was. If it was, you know, just a couple of cars, then, yeah, it was real. If it was the entire motorcade, then maybe not so much. And I'm having a hard time believing what they say his blood pressure is, considering his diet. I don't believe he's hypotensive. I just don't believe he's got low blood pressure. Don't believe the 118 over whatever the hell it was, if he's on cardiac medications for cholesterol and all that shit. No way. I mean, my blood pressure, I've had low blood pressure. So I you know. But it's also so I know that sometimes if your BP is low enough, you have to work yourself up just to get it up to a normal functioning thing. But I'm sorry. Somehow heart disease and low blood pressure don't go hand in hand. They just don't. Especially the type of diet he's got. Hell. Especially his weight. No way. And, but I'm going to circle back to Dr. Hill's testimony. She also offered a way out of the dilemma of, you know, again, don't amplify. Don't repeat it. Don't use it. You're using it. You're amplifying it. You're helping our enemy. Why are you being such a fucking fifth column, Judiciary Republicans on the Judiciary Committee? My fellow Americans, those of you that support Donald Trump and think that, oh, Russia's like the coolest thing on wheels. Why? You'd be the same ones yelling and screaming if it was a Democrat behaving this way. I played this a while ago. I'm going to play it again. And yeah, I know I'm doing a lot of filler, but hey, it's my show and I can do what I want. This is from The Fascist Revival by Mike Newbury.
Kennedy, the right hoax, will by this tactic be forced toward their own position. This tactic of the right attempts to destroy the Kennedy administration's promises of peace with warlike actions. To accomplish this, the right seeks to compromise the self-proclaimed liberalism of President Kennedy's administration on domestic issues, and to separate it from the gunboat foreign policy. Knowing that a liberal program at home cannot long survive an international policy that is reactionary, the rightist politicians hope to sink the civil rights, labor, and welfare measures of the Kennedy administration with the gunfire of war. It is the familiar guns not butter tactic. Once guns replace peace negotiations, the rightists know the rest is history. Humorous is how an unusually perceptive journalist at first described these fanatics. Ridiculous was the dictum of Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Yet, wasn't Mussolini thought of at first as a buffoon and clown, and wasn't Hitler ridiculed as a madman? Is it necessary at this late date to say that the dangers of fascism will be defeated only if they are seriously exposed and fought? Laughing at fascism will not laugh it away. Wishful thinking will not wish it away, nor will the belittling of the fascist revival help defeat this determined offensive of the war advocates. To the trade unions in particular, and working people in general, whom fascism would burden with the casualties and costs of war, while denying them their laboriously won rights, weakening and abolishing their unions and subjecting them to second-class citizenship. The threat of fascism is very real, immediate. To the Negro people, to whom fascism would mean instituting of racism to the level of national and international policy while establishing Jim Crow as the law of the land and destroying any hope of equality and integration, the threat of fascism is deadly. To the Jewish people, to whom fascism would mean a reopening of the scarred wounds of Hitlerism, the threat of fascism is a nightmare. To the intellectuals to whom fascism would mean an eternal witch hunt. While straitjacketing all thought, padlocking the mind of universities, and emasculating freedom of the press, the arts, and the sciences, the threat of fascism is the threat of sterility. To the whole American people, be they Democrat or Republican or socialist or communist or of any belief in between, to whom fascism would mean an end to democracy while turning the country into a vast military camp with bird society coordinators to staff this garrison state, and the economy ruined by an insane nuclear war, the threat of fascism is a threat to America itself. America is indeed in danger. The unity of the whole people and nothing less is required to safeguard our form of democracy and the people of the world from the un-Americans of the ultra-right. Bishop Horace Donegan of the Protestant Episcopal Diocese of New York has warned that, quote, to call such programs of the Birchrights, which sow seeds of suspicion and ill will, conservative, is a misnomer. They endeavor to reverse our American tradition of democracy and civil rights, the Right Reverend Bishop Donegan said, to paralyze our federal government in its promotion of the general welfare and in other ways to turn back the clock of our national history and experience. The urgency of the fascist offensive is the urgency of history. Frantic because of the growth of freedom, the fascists wish not only to turn back the clock, but to smash the clock. It is a great moment in history we are witnessing.
You're listening to the 523 Happy Hour with Kelly Lincoln here on netrootsradio.com.
And you referred to a certain statute. Now, this statute has nothing to do with burglary. It only has to do
with the United States Constitution, Mr. Chairman.
No, sir. Not the purpose of the statute. The Constitution takes care of itself, even though the statute sets out. This statute has only to do with the interception or disclosure of wire or oral communications prohibited.
No, sir, it also has to do with the Congress' recognition of what the Constitution provides with relation to the powers of the President.
Is there a single thing in there that says that the President can authorize burglaries?
Well, let's read it, Mr. Chairman.
It says here that this statute, which makes it unlawful to intercept and disclose wire or other communications, says that this shall not interfere with the constitutional power of the President to
do anything necessary
to protect the country against 5 things.
Yes, sir.
The first says actual or potential attack or other hostile acts of a foreign power. You don't claim that
let's get down
burglarizing Dr. Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office to get his opinion, his recorded opinion of the intellectual or psychological state of his patients is an attack by foreign powers, do you?
Well, we could have a lot of fun with all 4 of these till we get to the operative one, Mr. Chairman.
May I get into this? May I get in this legal debate?
Well, yes, you claim that, Mr. Wilson.
Then you read this end of that sentence, which says, "or to protect national security information against foreign intelligence activities."
Against foreign intelligence activities. The foreign intelligence activities had nothing to do with the opinion of Ellsberg's psychiatrist about his intellectual or emotional or psychological state.
How do you know that, Mr. Chairman?
Because I can understand the English language as my mother tongue.
Mr. Chairman, may I answer that? The CIA must have thought that it had some foreign relationship because they had done an ineffective profile on Ellsberg.
Well, the CIA had no business doing that because the law prohibits them from having anything to do with internal security.
Yeah. Sir, you wouldn't consider that foreign intelligence activities?
No, this was a domestic intelligence activity. These people were from diplomas, from the White House.
Yes, but
we had a man passing secrets to the Soviet government.
Well, Ellsberg's psychiatrist wasn't doing that.
That was an echo of the Watergate hearings, and Sam Ervin was chairing those hearings. And like I said, common sense prevails. Even then, I think that was Colson that he was speaking to, tried to spin a break-in of Daniel Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office as a national security issue. Much as we have people going, we can't talk about what the back channels because of national security. There's no fucking national security if you're going behind, if you're back channeling and avoiding the regular channels, you're compromising national security. It's sort of like Sondland's show-off phone call to Donald Trump, to his good buddy Donald Trump, who doesn't know him no more. That's the way. That's the way it works. And also, I think Sondland's throwing everybody under the bus was a major fuck you to a business rival. Seriously. Also, Sondland's seen his hotel's income decline because of his association with this sad administration. So he's got every reason in the world to want to get Trump out of office or throw everybody under the bus.
Republican Party the other night. All of their leaders had gone far right, moving their feet to Donald Trump's beat. That's how they lost 40 seats. All of a sudden things began to change. They're looking into things that seem so strange, investigating that big orange schmuck. Looky here, it's indictment day.
I want to see him arrested. I want a convention. Impeachment, motherfucker. Indictment, indictment. Shake your subpoena power. Indictment, indictment. Hold on, baby. You're out of luck. You're really fucked. Oh, yeah. Indictment, indictment. Indictment, indictment. Indictment, indictment. Indictment, indictment. Oh, yeah, baby. Indictment, indictment. Watch him out. You're out of luck. Watch him up, baby. You're really fucked. Turn over. Indictment, indictment. Indictment, indictment. Indictment, indictment. Indictment, indictment. Indictment, you're out of luck. You're really fucked.
Hey, they say, ain't you that MAGA boy? Call me what you want, cause that don't matter, boy.
And now, stay tuned for Katie Speaks with Katie Klobuchar, and tune in later tonight at midnight Eastern, 1 a.m. Atlantic, 9 p.m. Pacific for the late night morning talk show with Kelly and Ricky here on netrootsradio.com. And now to torture you with some cringe rap.
I can be controlled by nobody or a check. They call me a coon, I'm not impressed. They don't like the truth, so the least they gon' suppress. Hey, they say, ain't you that MAGA boy? Call me what you want, cause that don't matter, boy. I just speak the truth, that's something they don't understand. Why these white liberals trying to tell me who I am? Don't put me in groups, cause I'm my own man. I said I wasn't Democrat and lost the